The laughter started the moment Commander Kira Vance stepped through the airlock of Nexus Station. She had expected stares. She had expected whispers. What she had not expected was open mockery from beings who had never set foot on a hostile world in their entire pampered lives. The observation deck of Nexus Station was crowded with delegates from 17 different species. They had gathered for the annual Galactic Commerce Summit, a fancy name for rich aliens arguing about trade routes and mining rights. Kira was not here for commerce. She was here because her ship needed fuel, and Nexus Station was the only refueling point within 3 parsecs. She walked through the crowd with her shoulders back and her chin lifted. Her uniform was torn in several places. Her boots were caked with dried mud and something darker that she preferred not to think about. And tucked under her left arm was a helmet. The helmet was massive. It was designed for a head much larger than any human skull. The metal was black and scarred with deep claw marks. One side was dented so badly that it looked like someone had taken a hammer to it. The visor was cracked down the middle and dried blue liquid stained the edges where it had leaked from inside. A tall Valorian diplomat was the first to laugh. His silver skin rippled with amusement as he pointed one long finger at Kira. The Valorians were known throughout the galaxy for their beauty and their complete lack of combat experience. They had evolved on a paradise world with no predators, and they had never fought a war in their entire history. "Look at this creature," the Valorian said to his companions. "A human. They let humans on Nexus Station now? And look what she carries, a child playing dress-up with equipment she could never use." His companions laughed. There were 3 of them, all Valorians, all dressed in flowing robes that cost more than Kira's entire ship. They looked at her like she was an insect that had crawled into their private party. Kira stopped walking. She turned slowly to face the Valorian diplomat. Her eyes were cold and steady. She had not slept in 43 hours. She had not eaten a proper meal in 3 days, and she had absolutely no patience left for anyone. "This helmet," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter around them, "is not mine." The Valorian's smile faltered. Something in her tone made him uncomfortable, though he could not have explained why. "Obviously, it is not yours," he said, recovering his composure. "It is clearly designed for a Kreth warrior. The Kreth are the most feared hunters in the galaxy. That helmet would never fit on your tiny human head. So why do you carry it around like some sort of trophy?" By now, the crowd had gone quiet. Dozens of alien eyes were watching the exchange. Kira could feel their attention pressing against her skin. Most of them looked amused. A few looked curious. None of them looked like they expected anything impressive from a human. Humans were new to the galactic scene. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 12 years ago. In that time, they had established a few small colonies and opened limited trade agreements with some of the younger species. But to the old powers of the galaxy, humans were barely worth noticing. They were small. They were soft. They had no natural weapons, no armored skin, no psychic abilities. They were, in the opinion of most galactic citizens, utterly unremarkable. Kira lifted the helmet and looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked back at the Valorian. "It belonged to the creature that tried to kill me," she said simply. The Valorian blinked. His companions exchanged glances. "Tried?" one of them asked. "You expect us to believe that a human killed a Kreth warrior?" "I did not say killed," Kira replied. "I said tried. The Kreth tried to kill me. He failed, and when he failed, I took his helmet." "Impossible," the Valorian diplomat declared. "The Kreth are perfect predators. They have hunted across 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. No species has ever defeated a Kreth in single combat. Certainly not a human." "Then how do you explain this helmet?" Kira asked. "You found it," the Valorian said. "Or you stole it. Or you bought it from a merchant who deals in curiosities. There are 100 explanations more believable than a human defeating a Kreth. Kira smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen things that would make this pampered diplomat weep like a child. "You want to know what happened?" she asked. "Fine, I will tell you. But I warn you now, diplomat. You will not laugh when I am finished." She found a chair and sat down heavily. Her muscles ached, her head throbbed. But the story was important, not for her ego, but because humans needed the galaxy to understand something crucial. They were not weak, they were not helpless, and they were absolutely not prey. 3 days ago, Kira began, my ship was crossing the abandoned sector. Do you know why they call it that? The Valorian shook his head. Because nothing lives there anymore. Nothing intelligent anyway. The Kreth hunted that sector clean about 200 years ago. They killed every sentient species that could not run fast enough. Now it is just empty worlds and dead cities and the bones of civilizations that made the mistake of thinking they could fight back. She paused to let that sink in. I was not supposed to be in the abandoned sector. My navigation system malfunctioned, and I dropped out of hyperspace in the wrong location. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. A Kreth hunting vessel had already detected me. A murmur ran through the crowd. More aliens had gathered now, drawn by the story. Even the Valorian diplomat had stopped smirking. The Kreth do not negotiate, Kira continued. They do not take prisoners. They do not accept surrender. They hunt, and they kill, and they take trophies from their victims. That is their entire culture. That is all they are. We know what the Kreth are, someone in the crowd said. Everyone knows what the Kreth are. That is why no one goes to the abandoned sector. My navigation system malfunctioned, Kira repeated. I did not choose to go there. But I was there, and a Kreth hunter was closing on my position. His ship was faster than mine. His weapons were more powerful. Running was not an option. So what did you do? The Valorian asked. Despite himself, he was interested now. I landed on the nearest planet. It was a dead world, covered in the ruins of a city that the Kreth had destroyed 2 centuries ago. I knew that a Kreth hunter would not simply bomb me from orbit. That would be too easy. The Kreth live for the hunt. They want to chase their prey on foot. They want to feel their victims' fear. So I knew he would land and come after me personally. And you ran, the Valorian said. You hid in the ruins and hoped he would not find you. At first, Kira admitted. At first I ran. I hid. I moved from building to building trying to stay ahead of him. But do you know what I learned very quickly? What? You cannot hide from a Kreth. Their senses are too sharp. They can smell fear from half a kilometer away. They can hear a heartbeat through solid stone. They can track prey across terrain that would defeat any scanning equipment. Running and hiding only delays the inevitable. It does not prevent it. Then how did you survive? Another alien asked. This one was a Thessian, a being covered in hard scales with 4 arms and a face full of sharp teeth. Even the Thessian looked impressed. I stopped running, Kira said. I found a building that had only one entrance. I blocked that entrance with debris and rubble. And then I waited. You waited for him to find you? Yes. I knew that he would. I knew that I could not escape. So I decided that if I was going to die, I would die fighting. I would make him work for his kill. I would hurt him even if I could not defeat him. I would show him that humans are not easy prey. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the background chatter of the observation deck had died away. Hundreds of aliens were listening to a small human woman tell a story that should have been impossible. He found me after 4 hours, Kira continued. I heard him tearing through the debris I had piled at the entrance. He was not quiet about it. The Kreth do not believe in stealth when they are closing in for the kill. They want their prey to hear them coming. They want their prey to feel terror in those final moments. "What did you have?" the Valorian asked. "What weapons?" "A plasma pistol with half a charge remaining, a survival knife, and a piece of metal pipe I had found in the ruins. Against a Kreth warrior?" The Valorian sounded incredulous. "A Kreth warrior carries blades made from materials we cannot even identify. They wear armor that can stop ship-mounted weapons. They have strength enough to tear a being like me in half with their bare hands." "I know," Kira said. "I found that out very quickly." She touched her side, where a bandage was visible through the tear in her uniform. "He came through the door like a storm. He was 3 meters tall. His armor was black, exactly like this helmet. His eyes glowed red behind his visor. And he made a sound when he saw me. A sound like laughter, but deeper, hungrier. He was excited. He thought I would be easy. And then I shot him in the face." A gasp ran through the crowd. "The plasma bolt hit his visor dead center," Kira said. "It did not penetrate. I did not expect it to, but it cracked the visor just like you see here, and more importantly, it blinded him for about 2 seconds. 2 seconds, the Thessian repeated. "What can you do in 2 seconds?" "I can close the distance," Kira said. "I can get inside his reach, where his longer arms become a disadvantage instead of an advantage. I can jam my survival knife into the gap between his helmet and his chest plate. And I can twist." The crowd was staring at her now with something that looked almost like fear. "The knife did not kill him," Kira admitted. "It barely hurt him, but it made him angry. He grabbed me and threw me against the wall hard enough to crack the stone. I felt 2 of my ribs break. I lost my plasma pistol, and when I looked up, he was standing over me with his blade drawn." "How did you survive?" "He made a mistake," Kira said. "He wanted to savor the moment. He wanted to enjoy my fear before he killed me. So instead of finishing me immediately, he started talking." The Kreth have translators built into their helmets. He wanted me to understand what he was saying. "What did he say?" "He said that humans were disappointing prey. He said that we died too easily. He said that I was the 7th human he had killed, and not one of us had given him a good hunt. He said that he was going to take my skull as a trophy, but he was not even sure if it was worth the effort." Kira's eyes hardened at the memory. "He should not have said that," she continued. "He should not have told me about the others, because when he said that, when he told me about the 6 humans he had already killed, something changed inside me. The fear went away, and something else took its place." "What?" "Anger," Kira said. "Cold, focused anger. Not the hot kind that makes you stupid. The cold kind that makes you think clearly. The kind that tells you exactly what you need to do and gives you the strength to do it. But you were unarmed," the Valorian protested. "You were injured. You were facing a Kreth warrior in full armor. Anger does not change those facts." "No," Kira agreed, "but it changes what you are willing to do. When I was afraid, I was trying to survive. When I got angry, I stopped trying to survive. I started trying to win." She stood up slowly, still holding the helmet. "The Kreth have one weakness," she said. "Their helmet seals are not designed for species smaller than them. They are designed to stop attacks from beings their own size or larger. They never expected something as small as a human to get close enough to exploit that weakness." "What did you do?" "I grabbed his helmet with both hands. I found the release mechanism on the side, and I pressed it while shoving upward with everything I had left." "You removed his helmet?" "I removed his helmet," Kira confirmed. "And do you know what the atmosphere on that planet was like? It was thin, almost unbreathable for humans. But for a Kreth? For a Kreth warrior who had evolved on a world with heavy atmosphere and high oxygen content? It was poison." The realization spread through the crowd like a wave. "He started choking immediately," Kira said. "His lungs were burning, his eyes were watering, and for the first time since he had found me, he was not thinking about the hunt. He was thinking about his own survival." And then? And then I picked up my piece of metal pipe, Kira said. And I hit him, over and over. I hit him until he stopped moving. I hit him until I was sure he would never hurt another human. I hit him until the pipe was bent and my arms were too tired to lift it anymore. She held up the helmet. This is his helmet. I took it as a trophy, not because I wanted a souvenir, but because I wanted proof. I wanted the galaxy to know what happened. I wanted every species out there to understand something important about humans. What? The Valorian asked. His voice was barely a whisper now. Kira looked at him with eyes that had seen death and dealt it in return. We are not prey, she said. We are not easy kills. We are not disappointing hunts. We are humans. And when you back us into a corner, when you threaten us and our people, we do not give up. We do not surrender. We find a way. We always find a way. She tucked the helmet under her arm and turned to leave. Where are you going? Someone called after her. To refuel my ship, Kira said without looking back. And then I am going back to the abandoned sector. Why would you go back there? Kira stopped. She turned just enough to look over her shoulder at the crowd of aliens who were staring at her with new eyes. Because there are more Kreth out there, she said, and now they know that humans can kill them, which means they are going to come looking for us. They are going to hunt more of my people, and I am not going to let that happen. You are going to fight them? The Thessian asked. One human against an entire species of hunters? Not just me, Kira said. I sent a message to Earth before I came here. I told them what happened. I told them about the Kreth and their hunting grounds. And do you know what Earth said back? What? Kira smiled. This time it was a real smile. A dangerous smile. They said they are sending ships. Lots of ships, with soldiers who are very eager to meet the galaxy's perfect predators. You see, diplomat, you were wrong about humans. We are not prey. We never were. She turned and walked away, leaving a stunned silence behind her. The Valorian diplomat watched her go. He was not laughing anymore. And somewhere deep in his chest, he felt something he had never experienced before in his entire sheltered life. He felt fear, not fear of the human woman, fear of what her species might become when they finally showed the galaxy what they were capable of. The observation deck remained quiet for a long time after she left. The Kreth called it the Gathering of Skulls. Once every rotation of their home world's largest moon, the hunters would return to their sacred temple and present their trophies. They would display the skulls of their victims, arranged by species and difficulty of the hunt. The most prestigious trophies occupied places of honor near the temple's central altar. Lesser kills were stacked along the walls like forgotten memories. For 10,000 years, no species had ever disrupted the gathering. No enemy had ever attacked the Kreth on their sacred ground. The very idea was considered impossible. The Kreth were the hunters. Everyone else was prey. But the universe has a way of teaching hard lessons to those who believe themselves invincible. Commander Kira Vance stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the Kreth homeworld grow larger on the view screen. Behind her ship, a fleet of 47 human vessels held formation. They were not the largest ships in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced, but they were crewed by humans who had learned the truth about their place in the universe. They were not prey, and they had come to prove it. Commander, Lieutenant Chen said from the sensor station, I am detecting significant energy signatures on the planet's surface, concentrated around the northern continent. The temple, Kira said. That is where they will be. Navigation, set course for low orbit over those coordinates. All ships, maintain formation. The acknowledgments came back crisp and clear. Every captain in the fleet knew what was at stake. This was not a military operation in the traditional sense. This was a message written in fire and blood. The Kreth had killed humans. They had hunted her people across the abandoned sector for years, treating them like animals to be slaughtered for sport. Earth had received reports of missing colony ships, destroyed outposts, and human skulls found in the wreckage. For too long, humanity had not understood what was happening. They had blamed pirates, equipment failure, navigation errors, but now they knew, and they had come to deliver their response. "Commander," Chen said, his voice tight with tension. "Kreth ships are launching from the surface. 53 vessels moving to intercept." "Let them come," Kira said. "All ships, weapons hot. Engage at will." The battle began in the cold silence of space. Human ships were not designed for grace or beauty. They were built for one purpose: to fight. Every vessel in the fleet bristled with weapon systems that human engineers had developed in secret over the past decade. Plasma cannons that could punch through Kreth armor, missile batteries loaded with warheads designed to overload their shields, point defense systems that could track and destroy incoming projectiles with mechanical precision. The Kreth had never faced an enemy like this. They were hunters, not warriors. Their ships were built for speed and pursuit, not pitched battle. They expected their prey to run, to flee, to scatter in panic. They did not expect 47 human vessels to accelerate directly toward them with weapons blazing. The first Kreth ship exploded 3 minutes into the engagement. The second followed 8 seconds later. By the time the two fleets made their first close pass, 11 Kreth vessels had been destroyed. "They are trying to regroup," Chen reported, "forming a defensive line between us and the planet." "Break their line," Kira ordered. "All ships, attack pattern Delta. I want that line scattered." The human fleet split into 3 groups and hit the Kreth formation from different angles. The hunters were forced to divide their attention, and that was when the humans struck hardest. More Kreth ships died. More explosions lit up the darkness of space. Inside the Kreth vessels, confusion was spreading. Their communications channels were filled with angry voices demanding explanations. How were the prey fighting back? How were they winning? This was not how the hunt was supposed to work. But the humans did not care about how the hunt was supposed to work. They only cared about one thing: victory. After 2 hours of combat, the remaining Kreth ships retreated to the planet's surface. They had lost 31 vessels. The humans had lost 4. It was a victory beyond anything the fleet had expected, but Kira knew the hard part was still ahead. "Prepare the landing teams," she ordered. "We are going down there." The drop ships fell through the atmosphere like burning stars. Each one carried 20 human soldiers in combat armor, armed with weapons specifically designed to kill Kreth warriors. They had trained for this mission for months, studying everything humanity knew about Kreth physiology and combat tactics. They had practiced in simulated environments that replicated the conditions they would face on the ground, and they had all volunteered. Every single one of them had asked to be part of this operation, because they understood what the Kreth had done, and they wanted to be there when humanity delivered its answer. Kira was in the first dropship. She wore her combat armor and carried a rifle that could punch through Kreth plate at close range. On her belt hung the same survival knife she had used in that ruined city weeks ago. It had been cleaned and sharpened, but she could still see the small nick in the blade where it had struck Kreth bone. 2 minutes to landing," the pilot announced. "Enemy forces detected around the temple complex. Looks like they are setting up defensive positions." "Of course they are," Kira said. "They finally understand that we are not prey. Now they are learning what it means to be the hunted." The dropships touched down on a rocky plain about half a kilometer from the temple. The moment the doors opened, Kira could smell the alien air. It was thick and heavy, rich with oxygen and strange chemical compounds. The Kreth homeworld was not a pleasant place for humans. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth normal, and the atmosphere made her lungs work harder with every breath. But humans had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, mass extinctions, and their own self-destructive tendencies. A little heavy gravity and thick air was not going to stop them. "Form up," Kira ordered. "Squad leaders, report status." 8 voices responded, each one confirming that their soldiers were ready. Kira nodded and raised her rifle. "Move out! Standard advance pattern, watch for ambushes." They moved across the rocky ground in disciplined formations. The temple was visible in the distance, a massive structure built from black stone that seemed to absorb the light. Tall spires reached toward the sky like claws. Flickering torches lined the pathway leading to the main entrance, and between the human soldiers and their objective stood several hundred Kreth warriors. The first shots came from the Kreth position. Energy bolts screamed through the air, striking the ground around the advancing humans. 2 soldiers went down, their armor smoking from direct hits, but the rest kept moving, returning fire as they advanced. Human rifles cracked and thundered. Kreth warriors fell, their armor breached by weapons specifically designed to find the weak points in their protection. The hunters had never faced an enemy who knew their vulnerabilities. They had never faced prey that had studied them, analyzed them, and developed countermeasures against their every advantage. Sergeant Maria Torres led her squad up the left flank, using a ridge of rock for cover. She was a veteran of 3 colonial conflicts, and she had lost her brother to a Kreth hunting party 2 years ago. The message had said navigation error, equipment malfunction. She had believed it until Commander Vance had revealed the truth. Now she knew her brother had been murdered, hunted like an animal and killed for sport. His skull was probably in that temple right now, stacked on a shelf with hundreds of others. "Squad, advance," she ordered. "Target the warriors near the eastern entrance." Her soldiers moved with precision born of endless training. They worked in pairs, one providing cover fire while the other repositioned. The Kreth in front of them fell back, surprised by the coordinated assault. One Kreth warrior broke from cover and charged directly at Torres. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with armor decorated in the symbols of a veteran hunter. His blade gleamed in the alien sunlight as he raised it for a killing stroke. Torres did not flinch. She planted her feet, raised her rifle, and fired 3 times in rapid succession. The first shot cracked his visor. The second penetrated the gap beneath his helmet. The third took him in the chest as he stumbled. The Kreth warrior collapsed at her feet, his blade clattering uselessly on the rocks. Torres stepped over his body without a second glance. "Keep moving," she said. "We are not done yet." The battle raged for another hour. The Kreth fought with desperate fury, but they were outmatched by an enemy they had underestimated for too long. Human soldiers pushed through their defensive lines, driving them back toward the temple entrance. Bodies littered the rocky ground, most of them Kreth. Kira reached the temple doors with her personal guard unit. The massive stone slabs had been sealed from the inside, but human engineers had prepared for this. Explosive charges were placed at the weak points, and with a thunderous detonation, the doors crumbled inward. The interior of the temple was dark and vast. Torches lined the walls, casting flickering shadows across a floor covered in intricate patterns. And everywhere, on every available surface, were skulls. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. The collected trophies of 10 millennia of hunting, arranged in meticulous displays that told the story of Kreth dominance across the galaxy. Each skull was labeled with symbols, indicating the species, the location of the kill, and the name of the hunter who had claimed it. Kira walked slowly through the forest of death. She saw skulls that were massive and skulls that were tiny, skulls with horns and skulls with crests, skulls that had belonged to beings from species she had never heard of, civilizations that had been wiped out before humanity had even discovered fire. And there, on a shelf near the altar, she found what she was looking for: human skulls, 7 of them, arranged in a row. Fresh trophies, still white and clean. Each one was labeled with a symbol that she recognized from her encounter weeks ago. The symbol of the hunter she had killed. "These are ours," she said quietly. "These are our people." The soldiers around her fell silent. They stared at the human skulls with expressions that ranged from grief to fury to cold determination. "Commander," Lieutenant Chen said softly, "what do you want us to do?" Kira reached out and carefully lifted one of the skulls. It was light in her hands, impossibly light. Somewhere, a family was wondering what had happened to their loved one. Somewhere, children were growing up without a parent. Somewhere, friends were still hoping for news that would never come. "We take them home," she said. "Every human skull in this temple. We find them all, and we take them home. And then we burn this place to the ground." "Yes, Commander." The search took 3 hours. Human soldiers moved through the temple complex, carefully collecting the remains of their fallen brothers and sisters. They found 37 human skulls in total, scattered throughout various displays. Some were old, dried and yellowed with age. Others were fresh, barely weeks old. Each one was wrapped in a cloth and placed in a container for transport back to the ships. Each one would be returned to Earth, where families could finally have closure after years of uncertainty. When the last skull had been recovered, Kira gave the order. "Burn it. All of it." Incendiary devices were placed throughout the temple. The soldiers withdrew to a safe distance and watched as flames began to consume the black stone structure. The fire spread rapidly, fed by the dry trophies and ancient decorations. Within minutes, the entire temple was an inferno. 10,000 years of Kreth hunting history reduced to ashes. Kira watched the flames with no satisfaction in her heart. This was not victory. This was justice, long delayed. The Kreth had taken so much from so many species. They had built their entire civilization on death and suffering, and now, finally, someone had held them accountable. "Commander," Chen said, "we are receiving a transmission from the Kreth leadership. They are requesting a ceasefire." "Put it through." The voice that came over the communication channel was deep and harsh, filled with barely contained rage. "Humans, you have attacked our sacred temple. You have killed our warriors. You have destroyed our history. This is an act of war beyond anything we have ever experienced." "Good," Kira replied. "Now you know how it feels." "You dare to mock us? We are the Kreth. We are the supreme hunters of this galaxy. We will—" "You will nothing," Kira interrupted. "Listen carefully, because I am only going to say this once. Humanity is no longer your prey. If any Kreth warrior hunts any human anywhere in this galaxy, we will return. We will bring more ships, more soldiers, more fire. We will not stop until your species is nothing but a memory." Silence on the channel. "You cannot threaten us," the Kreth voice said, but there was uncertainty in it now. "I am not threatening you," Kira said. "I am making a promise. Stay away from our people. Stay away from our worlds. Stay away from our shipping lanes. If you do, we will leave you alone. If you do not, we will show you what humans do to those who prey on our kind." She cut the transmission without waiting for a response. "All units, return to ships," she ordered. "We are leaving." The human fleet departed from the Kreth homeworld as the temple continued to burn behind them. Smoke rose into the alien sky, a signal visible from space. A message that could not be misunderstood. The hunt was over, and the hunters had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humans were not prey. They never had been. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. Humans had attacked the Kreth. Humans had burned their sacred temple. Humans had recovered the skulls of their fallen and left the greatest predator species in known space reeling from a defeat they had never imagined possible. On 100 different worlds, in 1,000 different languages, the story was told and retold. Details were added, exaggerated, transformed by the endless process of galactic gossip. But the core truth remained unchanged, no matter how many times the story was shared. The prey had become the predator, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 months after the attack, Commander Kira Vance returned to Nexus Station. She came not as a refugee in need of fuel, but as an official representative of the United Earth government. Her ship was no longer battered and running on fumes. It was the flagship of a fleet that had grown to over 200 vessels, all of them crewed by humans who had volunteered for service in the wake of the Kreth campaign. The observation deck was crowded when she arrived, just as it had been on her first visit. But the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of laughter and mockery, there was silence. Hundreds of alien eyes tracked her movement across the room, and in those eyes, Kira saw something that made her uncomfortable. Fear, respect, awe. She had never wanted any of those things. She had only wanted to protect her people and make sure that no more human skulls ended up in Kreth trophy collections. But the galaxy had drawn its own conclusions from her actions, and there was no way to change them now. The Valorian diplomat was waiting for her near the viewport. His silver skin seemed paler than she remembered, and his usual air of superiority had been replaced by something closer to nervousness. He inclined his head as she approached, a gesture of respect that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. "Commander Vance," he said, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Ambassador," Kira replied. She did not offer her hand or any other greeting. The last time she had seen this man, he had mocked her and called her a child playing dress-up. She had not forgotten. "I understand if you are still angry about our previous encounter," the Valorian said. "I was rude and dismissive. I treated you poorly because I believed the stories we had been told about humans. I believed that your species was weak, primitive, unworthy of respect. I was wrong." "Yes," Kira said simply. "You were." The Valorian nodded, accepting the rebuke without argument. "I have been authorized by the Valorian High Council to extend formal diplomatic relations to the United Earth government," he said. "We wish to establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense treaties. The High Council believes that an alliance with humanity would be beneficial for both our species." 3 months ago, "You would not have considered such an offer," Kira observed. 3 months ago, we did not understand what humanity truly was," the Valorian admitted. "We judged you by physical characteristics alone. We saw that you were smaller than most galactic species, that you had no natural armor or weapons, that you had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. We assumed these things made you inferior. We were fools." He glanced at the viewport, where stars glittered against the infinite darkness. "The Kreth were the most feared species in the galaxy for 10,000 years, he continued. They hunted across 100 sectors and killed billions of beings from species too numerous to count. No one had ever successfully resisted them. No one had ever struck back. And then humanity came along and did what everyone else had believed impossible. We did what was necessary, Kira said. Nothing more. That is exactly my point, the Valorian replied. You did not attack the Kreth for glory or conquest. You attacked them because they were hurting your people, and you wanted to make them stop. You did what was necessary regardless of the odds, regardless of the risk, regardless of what anyone else thought was possible. That is what makes humanity remarkable. Before Kira could respond, a commotion at the far end of the observation deck drew her attention. A group of aliens was pushing through the crowd, led by a being she recognized immediately. Thessian. 4 arms, scaled skin, a face full of sharp teeth. The same Thessian who had watched her tell her story on her first visit to this station. Commander Vance, the Thessian called out. A moment of your time, if you please. Kira turned to face him. What do you want? My name is Krathvex, the Thessian said. I represent the Thessian Merchant Coalition. We are one of the largest trading organizations in the galaxy, with operations in over 40 star systems. I know who the Thessians are, Kira said. then you know that we have always maintained strict neutrality in galactic conflicts. We trade with everyone, ally with no one. It has been our policy for thousands of years. And Krathvex showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. And we would like to change that policy. For humanity. The crowd around them had gone very quiet. Even the Valorian diplomat looked surprised. The coalition has voted to offer exclusive trading rights to human vessels in our controlled sectors, Krathvex continued. Reduced tariffs, priority docking privileges, access to markets that have been closed to outsiders for centuries. In exchange, we ask only for the opportunity to build a relationship with your species. Why? Kira asked. Because we are not fools, Krathvex replied. We saw what you did to the Kreth. We saw what a few hundred humans accomplished against the most feared predators in the galaxy, and we asked ourselves, what could humanity accomplish with resources, with allies, with time to develop their full potential? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. The answer terrified us, Commander. And the Thessian coalition has always believed that it is better to have dangerous friends than dangerous enemies. Over the next few hours, Kira received similar offers from representatives of 8 different species, trade agreements, alliance proposals, requests for military cooperation, invitations to join ancient diplomatic councils that had previously refused to acknowledge humanity's existence. Each offer came with the same underlying message. We underestimated you, and we do not wish to make that mistake again. By the time she returned to her ship, Kira was exhausted. She had spent years fighting for humanity's survival, first against the Kreth, and then against the galaxy's assumptions about her species. She had never expected that victory would be this overwhelming. Commander, Lieutenant Chen said as she entered the bridge, you have a priority message from Earth Command. Put it through. The face of Admiral James Morrison appeared on the view screen. He was an old man, scarred by decades of service, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Commander Vance, he said, I have been reviewing the reports from your diplomatic meetings. It seems that humanity has suddenly become very popular in the galaxy. Yes, Admiral. Good, because we are going to need those alliances. I have received intelligence that the Kreth are planning a response to our attack on their temple. They have been gathering ships, recruiting warriors from their outer colonies. Our analysts believe they are preparing a major offensive. Kira felt her stomach tighten. She had known this was coming. The Kreth were not the kind of species to accept defeat quietly. They would seek revenge. And they would seek it soon. How long do we have? She asked. 2 months, maybe 3. They are being careful, trying to hide their preparations. But we have eyes in places they do not know about. What are our orders? Admiral Morrison's expression hardened. Prepare for war, Commander. Real war, not a single strike against a symbolic target. The Kreth are coming for humanity with everything they have, and we are going to meet them head-on. Understood, Admiral. One more thing, Commander. The government has decided to promote you. As of this moment, you hold the rank of Fleet Admiral. You will command all human military forces in the coming conflict. Kira was silent for a long moment. She had never sought power or advancement. She had only wanted to protect her people. But she understood why this decision had been made. She had killed the first Kreth warrior in recorded history. She had led the attack on their sacred temple. In the eyes of humanity and the galaxy, she was the symbol of human resistance against the hunters. I accept, she said finally, and I will do everything in my power to justify the trust that has been placed in me. I know you will, Admiral Morrison replied. Good luck, Admiral Vance. Humanity is counting on you. The view screen went dark. Kira stood alone on the bridge for a long time, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kreth were preparing their revenge. Somewhere out there, a storm was gathering that would determine the future of her species. She thought about the battered helmet that still sat in her quarters, a trophy from a fight that seemed like a lifetime ago. She thought about the Kreth warrior who had underestimated her, who had called humans disappointing prey, who had died choking on thin air while she beat him with a metal pipe. She thought about the 7 skulls she had found in that temple, the 37 total that her soldiers had recovered, the families who had finally been able to bury their dead and begin to heal. And she thought about all the humans who would die in the war to come, because there would be deaths. Many of them. War was not clean or glorious or heroic. It was bloody and brutal and filled with suffering. She had learned that lesson in the ruins of an alien city, with broken ribs and a survival knife as her only weapon. But she also knew something else, something that the Kreth had never understood, that most of the galaxy still did not understand. Humans did not fight because they enjoyed it. They did not seek conflict for glory or dominance. They fought because they had to, because their loved ones were in danger, because someone was threatening their home, because they had no other choice. And when humans had no other choice, when their backs were against the wall and their future was at stake, they became something that the galaxy had never seen before. They became unstoppable. The war began 6 weeks later. The Kreth fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a frightened and disorganized enemy. Instead, they found Admiral Kira Vance waiting for them with 300 human vessels and a coalition fleet of ships from 12 allied species. The Thessians had sent their fastest interceptors. The Valorians had contributed medical ships and supply freighters. A dozen other species had provided whatever they could spare, all of them betting on humanity to succeed, and humanity did not disappoint them. The battle for Earth lasted 9 hours. It was the largest space combat engagement in galactic history, with over 1,000 ships exchanging fire in the darkness between worlds. The Kreth fought with desperate fury, determined to prove that they were still the supreme hunters of the galaxy. But they were facing an enemy that refused to be hunted. Human pilots flew their ships into impossible situations, taking risks that would have been suicide for any other species. Human soldiers boarded Kreth vessels and fought hand-to-hand in corridors and engine rooms. Human engineers kept damaged ships operational through sheer determination and creative improvisation. And at the center of it all was Admiral Kira Vance, coordinating the defense from her flagship, giving orders that saved lives and destroyed enemies with equal precision. When the last Kreth ship retreated into hyperspace, the human fleet had lost 63 vessels. The Kreth had lost over 200. It was a victory that would be remembered for generations. But Kira did not celebrate. She ordered her remaining ships to pursue the enemy, to make sure they understood that humanity would not stop until the threat was eliminated. For 3 more weeks, the human fleet chased the Kreth across the galaxy, destroying their bases, freeing their prisoners, dismantling the infrastructure of 10,000 years of hunting. Finally, a message came from the Kreth homeworld. A surrender, complete and unconditional. The great hunters had been hunted into submission. The surrender ceremony took place on Nexus Station, in the same observation deck where Kira had first been mocked for carrying a battered helmet. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered to witness the historic moment. The Kreth leader was a massive being, scarred by countless battles, wearing armor decorated with the symbols of 1,000 kills. He stood before Admiral Vance and lowered his head in a gesture of submission that his species had never performed before. "We surrender," he said, his voice echoing through the silent room. "The Kreth recognize human dominance. We will hunt your people no more. We will release all prisoners. We will pay any reparations you demand. Only spare our species from extinction." Kira looked at him for a long moment. She remembered the fear she had felt in that ruined city, with a Kreth blade raised above her head. She remembered the anger that had replaced the fear, the cold determination that had given her strength to fight back. And she remembered something else, something that had guided her through all of this. Humans did not destroy for pleasure. They defended. They protected. They fought back against those who threatened them. But when the threat was eliminated, when the enemy was defeated, they did not pursue revenge for its own sake. That was what made them different from the Kreth. That was what made them better. "Your species will not be destroyed," she said, "but you will change. The hunting stops forever. The trophy collections are dismantled. The skulls are returned to their species of origin, where possible, and respectfully buried where not. And the Kreth will learn to live as members of the galactic community, not as predators who see everyone else as prey." "This is acceptable," the Kreth leader said. "It is not a negotiation," Kira replied. "It is the price of your survival. Accept it or face the consequences." The Kreth leader accepted. Later that night, when the ceremonies were over and the dignitaries had departed, Kira found herself alone on the observation deck. She stood by the viewport, watching the stars turn slowly outside. Chen found her there an hour later. "Admiral," he said, "you should be resting. Tomorrow will be another busy day." "I know," Kira replied. "I just needed a moment." She held something in her hands. The battered helmet, scarred and dented, with the cracked visor and the stains of dried blue blood. She had carried it with her through everything, a reminder of where this journey had begun. "What will you do with that?" Chen asked. Kira thought about it. She could put it in a museum, let it become a symbol of human victory. She could destroy it, put the past behind her. She could keep it, a personal trophy of her own. But none of those options felt right. "There is a memorial being built on Earth," she said, "for all the humans who were killed by the Kreth over the years. I am going to donate this helmet to that memorial, not as a trophy, but as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" Kira turned to face him. Her eyes were tired but clear, filled with a wisdom that had been earned through fire and blood. "A reminder that we are not prey," she said. "A reminder that when someone threatens our people, we do not hide or run or surrender. We fight back. We always fight back, and we will keep fighting until our people are safe." She looked at the helmet one more time. "But also, a reminder that victory is not the same as vengeance. We could have destroyed the Kreth. We could have hunted them to extinction, the way they hunted so many others. But we chose mercy. We chose to be better than our enemies. That matters too." Chen nodded slowly. "The galaxy is watching us now. They are wondering what kind of species we will become." "Yes," Kira agreed. "And that is why we must be careful. Power is dangerous. It can corrupt even the best intentions. We must remember who we are and what we stand for. Even as we grow stronger." She set the helmet down on a nearby table and turned back to the viewport. "We were laughed at," she said softly. "They thought we were weak. They thought we were prey. But we showed them the truth. We showed them what humans can do when we have no other choice. And now? Now we move forward. We build alliances. We protect our people. We become the species the galaxy needs us to be. Strong enough to defend ourselves, wise enough to know when fighting is not the answer." The stars glittered outside, infinite and eternal. Somewhere out there, new challenges were waiting, new enemies, new crises that would test humanity's resolve. But Kira was not afraid. She had faced a Kreth warrior with nothing but a survival knife and a piece of metal pipe. She had led a fleet against the most feared hunters in the galaxy. She had changed the course of history through sheer human determination. Whatever came next, she would face it the same way. Because that was what humans did. They found a way. They always found a way.